What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. The other day, I saw a comment on one of my videos. I can't track it down. I left the comment just to come back to it and respond on a video, but for some strange reason, there's nowhere to find this comment. It's based on some of my videos I've been talking about, where I basically posited the claim that Game Pass right now is changing the industry, and there's no one who can actually be walking around gaming that's not going to consider that this is actually something that is providing value for players. So what happened in this video, somebody went ahead and asked me after everything and said, well, what's up with Square Enix? Why did they decide to go multi-platform knowing that that's going to be less profitable for them? And I thought, okay, I think we need to talk about this in a video because I think that's a misconception when it comes to Square Enix's position and when it comes to what is going on with them. So Square Enix, for the most part, had been a proxy for PlayStation to basically do exclusivity deals with and be able to boost their platform. They've also been a proxy in a sense as well for Xbox to also do or make the same decisions or take the very same approach. Now, when you actually take these two things into consideration, you got to ask yourself and say, well, what was going on? Well, they were a company that had a bunch of games. They found a way that, oh, you know what? We're going to basically leverage these games that we have, and we're going to probably market them to the publishers directly to maybe help us recoup our development costs. And this happened in one case that I know of with Tomb Raider with Xbox, where Xbox money had it the game. Xbox got a lot of flack for that. But in the case of PlayStation, PlayStation has money hatted many Square Enix games, even though Square Enix is a third-party publisher. And Square Enix is happy to take the money. I'm not saying, it's PlayStation's fault. No. Square Enix also, that is their own thing. So they were taking the money. They were enjoying themselves. There was no problem. Everybody was fine and dandy. Octopath Traveler 2 appeared somewhere and Octopath Traveler 1 didn't appear somewhere. It's just been all over the place. Final Fantasy, this is going to appear on Xbox, and then Final Fantasy, that does not appear. Final Fantasy 14 was here and there. So there was all this convolution going on. However, the gaming industry has been changing in the last few years, especially since 2020 when we had all that issue. The new consoles came out. They were held down by scalpers. Nobody was able to get any interest in the consoles as they could not flow easily. So we've seen a real huge stop in terms of how gaming has flown in one direction, and now everything is different today. And Square Enix is no longer able to leverage these particular PlayStation consoles, where PlayStation 4 had over 100 million, units and was selling like hotcakes. Even the Switch also is about, 100 million units as well. So now Square Enix is no longer in the position that they had where they could, arguably sit there, take development money from Sony or take some kind of fee from Sony and also take sales from Sony at the same time. What has happened now is now forcing them to rethink their strategy, which is we need to sell copies of games. That is exactly what third-party publishers should be prioritizing. I mean, look at From Software and look at Warner Brothers. Last year and 2 years back, those two publishers alone were able to drop a 25 million copy selling game. And one did it without having to put the game on deep sale. Deep sale in the case of Elden Ring was like $35. I don't remember seeing Elden Ring get lower than $35, $36. So the cake came in for From Software very heavily. In the case of Hogwarts Legacy did it, but they had to put it on the Switch. They put it on everything. From did it with only PS4, Xbox, 3, Xbox One, Series X, PS5, and PC. Hogwarts went all the way down to the Switch to be able to push that number, but they did it in 1 year. So Hogwarts is impressive, and Elden Ring is also impressive. But third-party publishers, their goal is to push these sales of their, units. And in order for you to be able to push 25 million copies or more for your game, or even 10 million copies, depending on how popular your game is, it may require that you take yourself to multi-platform. And that's exactly what you need to do. If it may, and I say may because you're not Nintendo. Nintendo does it with ease, but Nintendo is Nintendo. So a lot of Square Enix's, portfolio has holes in them. Especially, when it comes down to the fact that if they want to try to appeal to people, say maybe on Steam or maybe say on, Xbox, there are holes in their, portfolio offering, because now if you've missed out on all the Final Fantasy 7s, why should you be interested in Final Fantasy 16 coming to Xbox or coming to PC? So now not only have they been basically sitting on the PlayStation platform, they've lost the interest of other platforms as well, because they're not bringing their games there. And I know someone's going to make a comment saying, but Xbox gamers don't necessarily buy games, which is a very silly concern, in my opinion, because how do you know that? Who's told you that Xbox gamers don't buy games? I think this is just something that a lot of people like to go ahead and spew and talk nonsense of, because at the end of the day, there is a platform of at least how many consoles has the Xbox Series X sold? Somewhere around, I don't know, is it 15, 20 million copies or so, 20 million units or so for Series X and Series S sales. So this is something that, even though you're thinking in your minds, those of you who would always say this nonsense, and there are people who say, I don't know why people come out and say stuff without that. Let's look at Series X sales. Let's look at that. How many copies? How many copies have 27 million units. So even if you have 27 possible customers, and you're not going to bring your game to them, to me that is childish as heck, because not only have you gone ahead to basically, lock yourself into a corner, you've gone ahead to pretty much, alienate a community that could be buying your game to probably a few million copies. I mean, Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7, those games would have at least sold 3 million copies on Xbox. Square Enix would not have been in the financial position that they were. And so when you think about it, if you think about everything that happened after the release of Final Fantasy 16 on PlayStation, Square Enix comes out and says, our position is no longer as, competitive as it was. Financially, we're hurting. And that's just the reality. Now, it's not because of Final Fantasy 16 they were hurting, but they just did not have any measures to be able to bring in extra income. It's one thing for you to make a game, put it exclusively timed, get your extra money and move on and then sell it everywhere else, but you got to have income coming in. And income did not come in from their other games. Should say Final Fantasy had sold possibly, let's say, another 6-7 million copies in the case of releasing the different version of Final Fantasy 7 on other platforms, I think that would have probably maybe served them better. But, it's just one of those things where it's their cake, so they have to basically eat it right now, and they're basically, cowering back again and saying, hey, we're going to come back to these other platforms. They're shaking hands. Some of the creators are shaking hands with Xbox because they see the importance of being able to move copies. I mean, Warner Brothers moved 25 million copies in 2023. Square Enix was only able to measly almost touch 4 million copies with Final Fantasy 16. That's bogus. That's BS. I mean, I'm sure they looked and they were like, what the heck? We make games that have bigger followings. Now this is Hogwarts Legacy, this is Harry Potter, but still though, they have a good library that is very popular. And if they cannot crack 10 million on basically most of the major IPs, then they got to basically start thinking differently, because the gaming scene has changed. Hogwarts Legacy 2 is going to eat another 25 million copies. From Software is going to come and eat another 25 million copies with their Elden Ring follow-up. These games are monumental games. So you can't keep locking Final Fantasy and expecting that people are going to go spend $500 to buy a PlayStation when they could just play Hogwarts, which is a fantasy RPG game, when they could just play Elden Ring, which is a fantasy RPG game. So that genre is actually interesting. And then you have Dragon's Dogma, which is also in that genre. And the competition in that genre, Square Enix needs to pivot its own strategy. This is my thoughts on the matter. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.